I've always loved walking through Gothic cathedrals and admiring the architecture, tall spaces, and stained glass windows. One of the most captivating parts of an old cathedral are the rosary windows. Today, we're going to design and make a layered rosary window with a laser cutter. To design this project, I use a software called Rhinoceros, which I use for all of my craft projects. If you don't have it, you can look for any other CAD software which will have the same process, commands, and workflow. First, we draw a line and copy it to have 8 points of symmetry. In Rhinoceros, there's a command called polar array where you can tell it that you want 8 duplicates equally spaced over 360 degrees. Now, we draw a circle with the center point snapped to the intersection of all these lines. The circle will be 9 inches in diameter, which is 4.5 inches in radius. I chose this size because my laser cutter's maximum working size is roughly 10 inches. Then, we draw a circle with a 1-inch diameter. These will be our guide for designing this layered rosary window art project. This next step is where the magic happens. We'll start by drawing guidelines in one area between the lines of symmetry. We'll also offset the symmetry lines inwards by 1/8 of an inch to incorporate it as part of this pattern. Now we use the guidelines to draw a circle. The goal is to have a semicircle at the end of the lines of symmetry. I know, this part is a bit messy, but we'll clean it up in a moment. Selecting all these lines, we'll use the trim command and remove all the excess and intersecting lines. When the shapes are cleaned up, we'll select all the lines that are part of the pattern, add them to a block, and give it a name. Selecting the block, we can now use the polar array command, select the center of the intersecting lines of symmetry, and array it 8 times over 360 degrees. This is the base of our layered rosary window project. Whenever we modify anything in one of the blocks by double-clicking on it and creating new elements, it'll automatically update to all the other copies of it. With that in mind, the next steps are simple. We'll copy this pattern and start making our offset adjustments to create the layered effect. The easiest way to do this is to delete all the blocks except for one of them for the next layer. Then, create a new block for this specific layer, double-click to go into the block, and join all the lines together. Using the offset command, we'll create an 1/8 inch offset inwards for all of these cutouts. Now we can polar array this pattern around a circle and this layer is complete. We'll do this for one additional layer, then move on to a unique inner one that I plan to cut out of blue acrylic. For this layer, I loved how the rosary window example had an intricate pattern inside. Since we can't really have thin pieces of acrylic, we'll create a simple geometric pattern cutout to give some visual interest to this innermost layer. You can create whatever pattern you want for this area so that your project is unique to you. After refining the design, it's time to create a 3D mock-up of the product. If you've seen any of my previous laser cut craft videos, I always create a simple 3D model of my projects, which we'll do now by extruding each area to 1/8 of an inch. Then we'll use the move command, snap to the center point of the bottom side of one piece, and move it to the top of the next piece to layer them. We'll repeat this with the remaining layers, and this is what the project should look like. To physically construct this project, I'm using an 1/8 inch mahogany plywood, and I'll protect the top layer with paper masking tape so it doesn't get burned by the laser. I'm also using a blue acrylic, which I'm removing the paper masking tape from to avoid flare-ups in my laser cutter. After inserting the plywood into my Glowforge, I start the process of cutting each layer. This is the best part of making any project because you get to see the design you came up with being precision cut with a machine. It follows every curve, line, and subtle details from the designs that we send to it. I've been using this laser cutter for many years now, and it's been doing a fantastic job. It's starting to show some signs of its age, where you can see some flames here and there due to some ventilation or power issues, but it's still getting the job done. Do me a favor and leave a comment with what laser cutter you have or really want to get. For this project, it took about 25 minutes to cut each of the layers. Once the cuts were complete, I removed the pieces from the laser cutter and brought them to my table where I started removing the protective paper masking tape from each layer. I brought over my super glue and applied it to the top of the blue acrylic where the next layer would be attached. Then I brought over the layer above, aligned the cutout with the engraved line that I put around one of the cutouts, and pushed it into place. The engraved line won't be seen by anyone since it's the perfect outline of the cutout for the layer above, but it helps us speed up the process of aligning every layer. Over the years, finding these little tricks have really sped up my process and made the assembly a lot easier. After repeating these steps with the remaining wood layers, the layered Rosary Art piece is complete. I love how the warm wood tones of the mahogany plywood work so well with the blue acrylic. The shadows created by the wood layers and the depth created by the blue acrylic makes it a really dynamic art piece to look at. If you enjoyed this video, check out my other acrylic craft videos and consider subscribing. I'll see you again next week.